And we welcome you back into the Alex Strouf Show here, presented by Cream City Central. We go to the phone lines now. Oh my God, Scott! I know you can't see the video feed, but this is just a great picture of you. We welcome in the sports reporter at the Green Bay Press-Gazette, one of my great friends in the business for many years, Scott Venci. Scott, how are you, my friend?
I mean, it's just, this may sound sarcastic, it may sound over the top, but anytime you invite me to do anything is a huge honor. And so thank you very much. I'm very excited about this today.
I'm happy to hear that, man, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your mentorship and guidance throughout my life. But the last time I asked you to do something together was back in February at the WIA State Wrestling Tournament. Would you like to explain what we did?
Yeah, because, well, first of all, I took you out to eat and paid, as I always do, because you're broke, apparently. But you and I took about 5 laps around a very, very packed Kohl Center.
Yeah.
Because I think we were just trying to kind of, burn some time. And we didn't know, just a couple weeks later, everything was going to shut down. It probably wasn't wise of us to purposely engage in the thousands of people who were in that bowl area.
See, it wasn't a concern yet. Like it wasn't even it wasn't a blip on our radar yet. So I don't think it was stupid by any means, but maybe not our brightest moment. Yeah.
No, and I remember in the media room though, there was this guy who had this cough, and I remember at least jokingly at the time going, "Oh man, this guy's got coronavirus." But you're right, we weren't actually thinking yet, hey, this is actually going to be a situation of what it actually turned out to be. But it was crazy how, a week later, whatnot, basketball, sectional semifinals and all that, and boom, everything just shut down. So it's been crazy, as you know.
Yeah, so that's usually what I lead off with anytime I have a guest on the show, but you're special, so I didn't. So what have the last 3 months been like for you? Obviously, you had a firing and a hiring at your main gig covering UW Green Bay, but besides that, what's up with you, Scotty?
It's really been about trying to come up with ideas, obviously with no sports. So, we started doing this thing with our local high schools of, pick the top 5 best athletes from 2000 on. And that's been pretty popular. People like lists, people like kind of remembering some of the great athletes and whatnot. And then really just trying to catch up with guys like a Cole Van Landen, who's now at Wisconsin, but he's a local kid from Bayport. Getting a chance to catch up with those guys going into the next season here. And then like you said, this off season for GB basketball has been like no other in terms of people transferring and then a coach being fired, coaching search. It's just been crazy. So I'm not happy anybody lost their job, but from a coverage aspect, it has given us 2 or 3 weeks of ideas and stories to be able to write that would not have been there. And, if there's no high school stuff or college stuff come fall, that might be where I start getting into trouble with story ideas. At that point, I might really be scraping the bottom of the barrel there.
Yeah, we were chatting about that last week a bit. And so for your sake, I hope there is high school football, because who doesn't love some high school football? But let's dive into this, Scott, because there's so much things. Like I wrote a 2,000-word piece on this yesterday, and I still have so many question marks that maybe you will be able to answer, maybe you won't. Let's start with, I think I can call it a firing, right? It's both parted ways and a firing.
Correct.
There's so many. I think you wrote a title a couple of weeks ago. There's more question marks than there is answers. What do you know now?
So they're doing a very good job of not actually saying, I think they, within their agreement of the buyout, they did agree, hey, we're not going to say anything disparaging about him. So I don't think we're ever going to have Charles Guthrie, the AD, or Michael Alexander, the chancellor, come on and say, this is why we fired him. But I think the general feeling has become a couple things. One, attendance has gotten down to the 1,800 mark. And that's really, in terms of who actually showed up, the body count was about 1,200 last year. And you're starting to slip into, hey, St. Norbert is starting to almost compete with that. And I think it's such a cliche thing, but I think they felt like, hey, we need to somehow energize this community and hope that we can get people coming back to these games, because finishing 3rd or 4th place, well, that's fine in terms of wins, losses, and relative success. It's just not doing anything. And Link was was good about being a basketball coach, but I'm not so sure he was that interested in that community connection and going out there and, meeting with people and being the face in terms of that. And I think that was definitely a concern of theirs. And then on a little bit of a smaller scale, but as you look long term, sure, they could have maybe waited out Lincoln a really good year. Maybe he'd have gotten a job and left and they wouldn't have had to even buy him out. But I've written about this a couple times, and we talked about this with him. Link, you have the greatest mid-major contract in college basketball, with the fact that every time they finished in the top 4 of conference, he got another year tacked onto his contract.
Oh, really?
And because they were going to be, so they were going to be relatively competitive. And he was always going to have 5, 6, 7 years left on his contract because of that. And so if you determined and you said, hey, we long term, we don't think Link is our guy, really doesn't matter whether you did it now or 4 years from now, because he's always going to have the same type of contract, unless he would have gone somewhere else because, let's say, they made the tournament. And then they could have gotten, they wouldn't have had to pay the $720,000.
Right.
But other than that, so there were reasons that make sense. Now, what I can tell you to this day is why they waited until the middle of May to do this,
right,
and not sometime in March. That's the thing that still befuddles me.
See, the only logical explanation for me, and tell me if I'm wrong because I probably am, Michael Alexander, the new chancellor at UW Green Bay, started on May 1st. So I assume he probably had some say in this, right?
And, I can't say definitively that he did.
Okay.
But even if it's a athletic director's decision, you have to assume that you're talking to the chancellor about that. And your theory holds just as much weight as anything else, because really nothing changed. And you had Link recruiting some of these guys, like a Terrence Thompson from lacrosse, during April. So you're not going to have him recruiting these guys and signing them all the while planning on firing him. So it could have been that Michael got in there and talks started, but that's just pure speculation.
Yeah, right. I have 2 more on Link before we get to the hiring of Will Ryan. Scott Venci of the Green Bay Press-Gazette joining us here on the Alex Strouf Show. You talked about kind of the revolving door of personnel surrounding Link Darner, during his tenure. We mentioned the new athletic director, new chancellor. Also, our guy, Andrew Gavin, who's now the athletic director at UW Parkside, was replaced in his role as assistant AD for strategic communication. A lot of changing pieces around Link Darner.
Absolutely. The AD, Mary Ellen Gillespie, who brought him in and was, a big fan of Link, obviously, when she left for Hartford. Well, now when Charles comes in 2018, that's not quote unquote your coach.
Right.
Now, contract wise, that also worked out for Link, because every time the chancellor or AD also left, he got another year on his contract.
Really?
So, yeah.
How many years did he have left, Scott?
Yeah, he had 6 years left.
Oh my God.
On his contract. And keep in mind, anytime they won a Horizon League regular season championship or a tournament championship, it was actually going to be 2 more years.
Oh my.
And without question, I sat in Link's office multiple times going, your contract is amazing. It is a great, and it is. It was a great clause that he got put in there in 2018. But anyway, so once Mary Ellen left, now all of a sudden it's like you don't have that same relationship. Does Charles now all of a sudden want to bring in his own person and all of that? So there has been a lot of changing around Link. Look, again, contractually, that wasn't as bad as maybe it would be for some people.
Yeah, that was my next question. My last one on in terms of Link, you probably crunched the numbers, I assume. How much money did this fired basketball coach, or how much is he going to make?
He's going to make at least $720,000. So he got his first payment last month of $120,000. On January 4th of this next year, he gets another payment, and then there's a bunch of monthly payments of $20,000 for the next couple of years after that. Now, if he doesn't get a job within the next 3 years, which he will, he would get another $240,000. So he could at the end get $960,000, but very likely he's going to take that $720,000 over the next 3 years. And that's whether he gets a job coaching anywhere. If you get hired by IUPUI, and he faces GB next season, not only is he being paid by IUPI, but GB's paying him to coach against them. So he got $720,000 of the $1.3 million, a little bit more than that on his contract left. He made out, now one little tidbit for you, they offered another job within the athletic department to him. And when he declined that was their way of not having to pay the full $1.3 million on his contract. So they were able to save some money based on him declining that reassignment, which would have been, an assistant athletic director type of thing. Now, had he said yes to that, I have no idea what they would have done, because you're not going to pay him $230,000 a year and Will Ryan another $200,000. So It would have been interesting.
Very interesting indeed. Scott Venci covers UW Green Bay for the Green Bay Press-Gazette. He's joining us via the Cream City Central phone line here on the Alex Strouf Show. So Will Ryan, it's their guy, son of Bo Ryan. They announced the hiring this weekend. You broke it, and you've done great work through this whole situation. How did the pieces fit for Will Ryan to be the guy they brought in?
Will Ryan, I think, fits that exact mode, when we were talking about energizing the community and trying to get people in the seats. Now, I don't know enough to say this guy's a great coach or this guy's a better coach, but just looking at it, you can see why this makes sense, because of what you just say. It's not Bo Ryan, but it's Bo Ryan's kid, and that has offered some sort of excitement and energy in the couple of days since he's been announced. And Bo Ryan's going to be at some games. You're going to have that. And so I think, there are some people who criticize this and go, if Will Ryan's last name was something other than Ryan, he would not have gotten this job, only having 1 year as a D2 coach. And there were other guys, Brad Soderberg, obviously a lot more experience than Jimmy Foster, but so you add in the fact that you have that Wisconsin tie, that big Wisconsin tie. Mm-hmm. You have a guy who is untapped in terms of, you don't know that you're not hiring the next Tony Bennett, this, guy who just develops into a huge star, where all these other guys like Brad Soderberg, listen, what you're getting for the most part. Mm. But you have all of that. He's willing to come in a little bit cheaper than, maybe some other coaches would have in the past. And you combine then all those connections he has in Wisconsin, and I think they're hoping that will help go from 1,800 people to 25 or 3,000. If this guy's, a great coach, he'll probably be gone in 5 years, but could totally energize the fan base. And so with that, it totally does make sense. That hire made sense to me, at least.
Yeah, you don't have to say if he didn't have the last name Ryan, he wouldn't have a job, because you're in that building often. I will, though. I will say if his last name wasn't Ryan, he wouldn't have a job. But that's a job in Green Bay, that is. But that's just me. I mean, he went 14-13 last year, Scott. It's an interesting one to me. But we brought up.
However, though.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
To be fair to him, he took over that job on July 1st, much like this.
Right. Yeah.
Only had 5 guys on his roster.
It was only 5.
That team was picked to finish last, and he got them to 5th. Now, you are right. That is what people are saying. But the crazy thing is, this dude has 12 years of experience as a D1 assistant, has been to the NCAA tournament multiple times. So, but yeah, people are saying that, correct.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I imagine your Twitter mentions have all sorts of fun theories in them. I imagine. Bo Ryan, you brought him up. I know you kind of already either did a tweet or an article. My memory is escaping me. He will not be an assistant on his son's staff?
No, and I think that some people wondered, because the assistant coaching pool of money is probably also going to go down in this. So they're like, hey, if Bo will come, you're obviously not going to have to pay him. It's more for the other assistants, et cetera, would also help get people in the seats. But I'm very confident saying that Bo Ryan is happy in retirement, and he will be here to watch his son coach, but he's not going to be on the bench with them. But it made sense. The theory made sense, other than Bo Ryan actually coming out of retirement to be an assistant coach.
Do you think he'll sit by you in press row?
No, because as you know, my press row is in the nosebleed section.
It is.
So I can't imagine Bo Ryan walking up those steps of the Resch Center every time. I'm going to say right behind the bench, though, for GB. And he may even give some of the officiating a few words, like a dad would,
Right.
So,
just like I did back in high school. I wonder if he'll get ejected from any games like me.
You know what? Would be a great story, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. It'd be a great tie. personal tie. Amari Davis and PJ Pipes both coming back for Green Bay. That's obviously an important foundation for Coach Ryan, right?
It absolutely was. And Amari, that was the key one. When he last month, May 20th, said he was coming back, that kind of put everything else in motion, because while everybody's important, you can't lose the centerpiece of your team, the freshman of the year in the Horizon League, and a guy who could be a program changer. So when he came back, it's like, all right, if they lose somebody else, it's not going to be as big of a deal. But them getting PJ back, that veteran point guard, that one senior on that team that can kind of be that leadership voice and all that, those two were important. Now, they have lost a couple guys, but mostly these recruits who had committed under Link Gardner, for the most part, the majority are still going to come here. So the losses were there, but it's not devastating in any sense of the word.
Well, that's good for Green Bay, most definitely. Scott Venci from the Green Bay Press-Gazette joining us. Scott, last one for you, and it's going to have nothing to do with Green Bay at all. It has something to do with you and me. Typically we do interviews together. Now I'm interviewing you. How'd I do, A, and B, do you have any questions for me?
First of all, you always do well.
Thank you.
Anytime that we're in the same interview thing, I think I always tell you, man, you're really good. And again, as a radio guy, you sound like a radio guy. You know, the voice is there. Obviously, I always tell you how proud I am of you. I first met you when you were 14 at GB games, covering the games, maybe a little bit older, but I mean, you were already really good then. I can't believe that you're still only how old you are. I feel like you've been in the business for 40 years or whatnot. So yeah, great job. Really proud of you.
Appreciate it.
I guess my question just off the top of my head is, you continue to kind of rise up the ranks of this profession, much like a Will Ryan.
Oh, wow.
Just kind of like you see the ladder and you see that you're climbing up it. I don't know if you'd want to say this as you're with somebody right now, but what do you think the next step is for you in this profession?
I need to graduate. That's what's next. I've got that coming up in 11 months, and then we'll see. I think if Gannett wants to hire me as maybe just like your assistant, I'm good with that. And then I'll just I'll live in the basement of your apartment or whatever, and I think that's the next step.
I mean, hey, if I've not been laid off in the next 11 months, we'll talk.
Okay.
But I'm thinking, I was thinking, big time, like your own national radio show or something. That's what I'm thinking for you.
If you co-host it with me, we'll get it in the works.
I'd be willing to. I don't know, but as we were talking today, I realized you've done million radio interviews. Was I talking a little bit too long on some of those answers?
No, I thought those were good. We had Jim Paschke on earlier, and he gave me long answers. But if they're informative and entertaining, you're doing your job, and that's exactly what you've done.
And okay, I'll have to review it later. I don't know if it was entertaining at all, but there might have been some information. So yeah, maybe.
You're terrific, man. Always so good to catch up with you, my friend.
Buddy, anytime, okay?
I will definitely take you up on that. That's Scott Venci of the Green Bay Press-Gazette joining us here on the Alex Strouf Show. That guy is just freaking awesome. Like I said, one of my best friends in the business, and he said it in that interview. He kind of took me under his wing when I was a 14-year-old wannabe covering, Green Bay basketball, because I lived over there, and that's kind of how my path in media began, and I owe a lot of that to Scott. So always so good to speak with him, and he didn't mention that he ordered a grilled cheese when we went out to lunch together back in February. He a 40-year-old man, ordered a grilled cheese. Okay, I had to throw that out there. I had to throw him under the bus there. Let's take our final break. On the other side, we recap what we went through today, and we preview Thursday's show. This is the Alex Strouf Show here on Cream City Central.